Agents ship backends, not certainty. AutoBE, an open-source agent that builds TypeScript Nest.js backends by having models emit ASTs via function calling instead of raw code, reports 100% compilation success on its generated projects when driven by local models such as Qwen3, Next, ADB, A3B, and Struct. That's a big jump over earlier attempts that often failed to build. But the team is clear-eyed. Compilation isn't runtime correctness or safety. Its own tests pass at about 80%. And issues like wrong SQL or misread business logic still crop up. The interesting bit is architectural. AutoBE's compiler-first approach forces models to construct deeply nested ASTs, Prisma OpenAPI Test, a barrier earlier models couldn't cross. Now, newer local LLMs do, and the team plans to benchmark function calling on complex types across models in about 2 months. That matches what seasoned developers are finding. Treat AI like a junior developer. After 6 months of daily trials, one exhaustive comparison distilled a reliable workflow. Be ultra-specific, file, function, line, plan at file function granularity before coding, feed small focus chunks, not whole repos, and double review. Human first, then an AI reviewer. In that field report, Tracer for planning, Claude Code for implementation, CodeRabbit for review was the most productive stack. The core warning is timeless. It compiles, it works. Strong tests, explicit stack dependency choices, and narrow context remain non-negotiable. Reality also includes API's rough edges. A fresh Anthropic report documents tool calling with long parameter values failing silently. Claude Sonnet 4.1 4.5 omits long parameters, around 500 words tokens per parameter, then loops with apologies because it thinks it provided them. It's a good reminder that robust agents need guardrails for serialization limits and retries that actually change behavior. An editorial on the reality of agentic development echoes the theme. Getting agent workflows right takes iteration and discarding versions that don't deliver in practice. Long context meets hard limits. A widely discussed claim pushes back on context window hype. Token count alone overstates usable context. Based on stress tests of Gemini 2.5 Pro, the authors propose phenomenological contextual weight, PCW, the conceptual density complexity of content, as the real bottleneck. They report a contextual storm around 30K tokens in dense WIP, self-referential philosophical dialogue, far short of million-token windows, arguing that long context recall tests, like needle in a haystack, miss this high-density reasoning failure mode. The thread is contentious. Some call it jargon for cognitive load, but the authors accept overlap with classic NLP constructs and commit to measurable definitions and engineering tactics like pre-structuring inputs. Fresh research formalizes another recurrent pain point. Models are bad at spotting subtle reasoning errors. Hide and seek with LLMs frames this as a generation diagnosis gap and uses mathematical reasoning as a test bed because it's structured and verifiable. The paper surveys static error sets, cheap, controllable, but pattern-bound and easy to overfit, versus dynamic adversarial techniques, and argues for an adversarial game that synthesizes sneaky errors and trains models to recognize and localize mistakes. The goal is to improve deep diagnostic ability, not just surface-level plausibility, and to adapt as models evolve. Robustness remains brittle under pressure. Prism Eval's technical report for its LLM Robustness Leaderboard introduces the Behavior Elicitation Tool, a dynamic adversarial optimizer that hunts for many jailbreak pathways rather than stopping at the first exploit. Across 41 models, BET achieved near universal compromise, including 100% attack success rate on 37 models. As a result, safety by obscurity looks untenable. Defense needs diversity and depth, not one-off patches. All of this reinforces a pragmatic direction: enrich systems with structure, search, and verification. It's notable that new open models branded explicitly for search are appearing, such as Fractal Airy Search's Fathom Search 4B on Hugging Face, an indicator of ongoing interest in tooling that helps models retrieve, decompose, and check work rather than improvise in one pass. Local AI goes mobile and private. On Android, ToolNeuron Beta 4.5 positions itself as a privacy-first, offline AI hub with runtime model switching, plugin support, web search, scraper, coding canvas, and a data hub to attach specialized datasets. Today it runs CPU only, The developer cites llama.cpp's issues with Adreno Vulkan drivers and is exploring alternatives like Google's LiteRTLM but notes format mismatches. The focus is clear: keep inference on device, extensible and usable daily. Even if GPU acceleration takes time, the do-it-yourself path is also improving. Llama Flutter wraps llama.cpp in a Flutter plugin to run GGUF models locally on Android with real-time token streaming and a simple Dart API. One nice lesson in release hygiene: after a commenter asked about ARM64 optimizations, the author acknowledged that Bullet came from an LLM's overzealous rewrite and removed it. The plugin remains Android first and text only for now, with a sample chat app and APK to trial. On the desktop, Emacs users get a native agent experience. Agent Shell integrates agents via ACP, the protocol developed by Zed and Google contributors, letting you switch between, for example, a Gemini CLI and Claude Code while keeping a consistent Emacs native workflow. There's a traffic viewer and the ability to save replay sessions, a practical way to debug agent UX without burning paid tokens. For browser-based setups, a recent OpenWeb UI thread shows the constraints of a Pyodide code interpreter. Only micropip, packaging, and regex are pre-installed third-party packages, though pure Python wheels can be added with micropip. Ambitions like calling external APIs or modifying image-only PDFs will hinge on what Pyodide can load and what is allowed in the sandbox. Workspaces, agents, and local-first dev. For larger teams, Workspacer offers a Kubernetes native operator for ephemeral, forkable workspaces. It introduces CRDs to define isolated environments and their components, supports hibernation wake cycles, including scheduled sleep-wake for cost control, and separates the operator, API server, and optional web UI via Helm. Features target multi-tenant isolation, right-sizing, and reproducible environment templates, essentially ISC for per-feature development stacks. Multi-agent applications are moving beyond demos. A new AutoGen-based financial analysis system packages a multi-agent architecture for enterprise workflows, multi-source market data integration, risk VR, stress tests, Monte Carlo, quant, factor models, portfolio optimization, ML forecasting, backtesting and optimization, dashboards, and deployment via Docker or Kubernetes. It exposes both CLI entry points and an API server for interactive use. Atlassian's Rovo Dev is now generally available as a full SDLC, context-aware agent across Jira, CLI, IDE, GitHub, and Bitbucket. Users report access to Claude Sonnet 4 and GPT-5 preview, with a free first month on the standard plan, 20 Memon daily tokens in earlier CLI trials, and free access for Jira subscribers. Opinions vary on quality and token usage, but the positioning is clear: an integrated platform rather than a standalone CLI. For developers who want openness and privacy, Nanocoder's local-first coding CLI keeps gaining features. A models database with hardware-aware recommendations, new agent tools, web search, fetch URL, search files, and modes for auto-accept or planning. Crucially, it integrates Model Context Protocol (MCP) servers and invites more granular context budgeting, manually adding files, setting token limits per tool MCP, and exposing the current context for pruning. The roadmap stays community-driven, with homebrew support coming soon. Faster speech, smarter pixels, cinematic frames. For mass transcription, one developer built a fast API parakeet server that pushes the envelope, up to 1,288 times real-time on an RTX 4090 with parakeet 0.2 English only, using aggressive batching, e.g. 128 one-minute chunks at 16 Hz, and a Dockerized deployment. It can also do dynamic batching and server-side chunking for long files. On smaller GPUs, 8 GB VRAM, reducing batch sizes to 4 to 8 still yields better than real-time throughput. In graphics, a neat OpenGL trick revives dewarping without CUDA or dense meshes. By storing a per-pixel lookup table in a sampler 2D, using RGBA channels to pack 16-bit XY indices, and leveraging sub-pixel texture sampling in a fragment shader, the method achieves high quality and performance with just 2 triangles. Pre-computing the LUT moves the heavy math off the shader path and avoids aliasing artifacts typical of Vertex shader warps. Clean, portable, and fast. For image generation, a LoRa adapter fine-tuned on Qwen Image Edit build 2509 teaches the model to think like a director. Prompts prefixed with next scene guide camera motion, dollies, pans, framing changes, and atmospheric shifts to produce coherent multi-frame storyboards. Recommended LoRa strength is 0.7 to 0.8, with best results in landscape, establishing shots, and sequential workflows. It's built for scene progression rather than single image perfection. Open models, client apps, and maker energy. Aperdis 8B Instruct is a fully open, multilingual model with unusually thorough transparency, open weights, open data, and training recipes. The 8B variant supports 65,536 token context, is trained from scratch on 15T tokens across web code math, uses an AU activation and Adynamics optimizer, and is aligned via QRPO. The team emphasizes compliance, respecting opt-out consent, avoiding memorization, and even posts EU AI Act transparency documentation. It's a serious attempt to make open mean the whole stack, not just weights. On the application edge, a ShowHN project rebuilt a Bible search site to run 100% client-side with transformers.js. Semantic search and summarization happen in the browser. The first load is heavier as models and data download, but privacy and responsiveness improve afterward. It's a concrete example of what modern JS runtimes and small models can do entirely on the client. Finally, the Maker community continues to blur lines between instruments and interfaces. StraightX1, an open-source violin-style MIDI controller, uses a soft-pot linear potentiometer sampled via a 16-bit ADC for fretless pitch control and per-string force sensors for expressive dynamics. The 3D-printed laser-cut body delivers convincing vibrato and continuous control, and the whole project is being shared for others to build or extend, open hardware with musical nuance.